Build a dark harvestator from a kit. Before you get started, it's good to have a look at the components first and try and identify what they are. With this kit, we've labelled all the resistors, so that's something that's a bit easier for you. But you can always use a resistor identifier to check. There's several of those online, so you can look at the stripes that are on the resistors to identify them and compare them. First thing you want to do is put the resistors in. You bend the legs like that. It doesn't matter which way around the resistors go, they work either way around. There's no polarity on resistors. So just make sure that they're in pretty much flush with the board. You might have to fiddle around with them a bit to get them sort of straight. And then you want to put the chip holder in. You line up the half circle on the chip holder with the half circle on the board. Just before you solder the chip holder, it's good to put some tape on just so it doesn't fall out and then it won't be crooked. I normally do one leg on opposite sides on the chip holder and then turn it around just to sort of check that it's straight. Because if you've only done one leg on each side, then you can just push it in a lot easier to straighten it. And then just to make things a bit easier when you're soldering, you can clip some of the legs as you're going along. Make sure you don't solder the chip legs together. They don't go together. The capacitors, when they're the ceramic capacitors like that, they're not polarized, so they can go either way around, and you can identify them by the code that's on them, which is also in the instructions, or we might have labeled them, but if they're not labeled, then they should have a number. And with these ones, they fall out quite easily, so it's good just to sort of bend the legs a bit so they don't fall out, but don't bend them too much, just a little bit. So the LEDs have polarity. The short leg is the negative and will be lined up with the square. Usually with capacitors or with LEDs, if there's one leg shorter than the other, it usually means there is polarity. So keep that in mind, because if you put them around the wrong way, they won't work. So make sure you check that before you solder them. Same with the capacitors. These types of capacitors do have polarity. So you match up the negative for the short leg, and you're matching it up with the bit that is white on the board. So just double check that with the diagram, and make sure you know that you're putting it in the right way, because desoldering them can be a bit annoying. So it's a good idea to cross things off the list. It makes things a lot easier, as you can see. And often you can identify things just through the process of elimination. So that's always a good trick. If you can't identify something, maybe put it to the side and then see what's left over at the end. I'm putting the pots in now, so do check the values on the pots, because they are different. One of them is different on the dark harvestator. The volume one, which is the sheep, is different to the others. So do check that before you put them in, and before you solder them. They should fit quite nicely in there. If any of the legs are bent, just check them and straighten them before you put them in, but they should just clip in there quite nicely. Just check that they're straight before you solder them, and check all the legs have gone through. Just solder those in, and the holes that the bigger legs, they sometimes just need a bit more solder in them, so you can sort of flow that in. That helps to keep the knobs from coming off or anything like that, or bending or coming loose or anything like that. So make sure those got lots of solder on them. When you put the switch on, make sure you put it the right way around. There's a momentary switch which should go down the bottom, and it should hold on the top. Some of the components will only fit one way around, so you'll quickly work out which way around they go. With this, you have to bend the legs. Just bend them over like that. And then stick them in those 3 holes that will fit in quite nicely there. And stick some tape over it so it doesn't fall out when you solder it. So it's good to use a magnifying glass just to sort of double check what you're doing. With the chip, you should be matching the half circle with the half circle that's on the chip holder. I think most of our chips have the half circle, but if not, there might be a dot on one end, and then that's how you identify it. So that's how you put it around the right way. If you put it around the wrong way, it probably won't work, or you might fry the chip. So make sure it's around the right way. When you've done your soldering, just go through and double check everything. Maybe reflow the solder on a few of the joints if they look a bit dry, and just check everything is on there properly. Now is the time to test if the unit is working. Usually, if the unit doesn't work, it's probably a joint somewhere that's not soldered properly or doesn't have enough solder on it. Or it could be one of the chips might be the wrong way round. It could also be that one of the components is in the wrong place. So go around and double check everything and give it another try if you're having problems getting it to work. Dark Harvestator is a relatively straightforward kit to build. Once you've done this one, you would have the experience to build our Chernobylizer, which has a few more components than Dark Harvestator, so it's a bit more involved. Maybe takes about an hour or two more. To find out more about some of our other kits, visit our Etsy shop, isn'tses.etsy.com. We've got a few different things there that you can build. Dark Harvestator is another psychogeographic synth that we've designed. It's based around the island in Scotland called Gruinard Island, which was a place where the government tested anthrax on sheep. If you look at a few of the components, they're actually the shape of a man and a sheep. We found it interesting that the anthrax was left on the island for so many years. So those are when you've got the toggle switch, that's what the two dates mean. The year that it was first contaminated with anthrax and the tests were done, and then the year that it was cleaned. The name Dark Harvestator is inspired by the group called Dark Harvest, who protested about the island being left for so long with anthrax on it by leaving soil contaminated with anthrax outside government buildings. It's kind of surprising that the government took so long to clean it. It was eventually cleaned, but only because this group went to such sort of drastic measures to get any attention drawn to it. I think the group Dark Harvest, they're a mysterious group. Like, I don't think anyone really knows exactly who they were. So that's an interesting thing about it. But you can read more about the development of the synth on our blog, which is on our website,